So this means taking concrete steps, including demanding an immediate end to the siege in Gaza and halting all US military aid to Israel, following the example of Block the Boat, ILWU, West Coast Dockers, and workers worldwide who refuse to build, transport, and support weapons for Israel.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. This is one incredible photo from Palestine. It shows Dr. Hussam Abu Sufiya, the director of the Kamal Adwan hospital, walking at gunpoint through the rubble to an Israeli tank. There are actually two tanks there. The red arrows point them out. His abduction comes after the hospital suffered constant attacks, with some staff being burned alive. When there were no resources left at Kamal Adwan, Sufiya and surviving staff submitted to arrest and abduction by Israeli forces. The Israeli excuse for bombardment of the hospital, of course, is Hamas. Sufiya offered to allow an international team of inspectors into the hospital to look for these so-called armed men. The reasonable proposal was ignored by the Israelis. The Israeli group Physicians for Human Rights asked the Israeli army for information about Dr. Sufiya, for his location, for his treatment. The IDF sadistically answered they didn't know anything about his whereabouts. Didn't know? Here's a picture of Sufiya entering a tank in his white physician's coat. Here's video of the incident from Middle East Eye, which they obviously got from Israeli sources.
دكتور حسام أبو صفية الليلة وصل من مستشفى كمال عدوان.
طيب كيف كان تعامل الجنود
والله أنا في الغرفة اللي جنبنا أنا ما شفتوش معه بس كانوا سمعت اسمه لما بيزعقوا عليه في الصبح بيزعقوا على أسماء الصبح فسمعنا اسمه.
يعني
والشباب طلعوا لهم قالوا جابوا حسام عندنا. في أحد الشباب في الغرفة عندهم الدكتور حسام الليلة وصل.
When the Israeli physicians group threatened to go to the Israeli Supreme Court, the army decided that it had had enough fun and admitted Sufiya was in their custody for questioning. They would not say where. People are terrified that Sufiya will be treated like Gaza surgeon al-Bursh, who was tortured and murdered in an Israeli prison. Mariam Barghouti posted this tweet from an Emma Pike. Pike's reply to the picture was, "I'd never seen a man bigger than a tank until now." Awesome words. Photos from the weekly vigil in New Haven, Connecticut in front of Yale New Haven Hospital on January 2nd. About 15 braved the cold. On an even colder and windy January 4th, about 20 of us rallied in front of Danbury Hospital. More about it next week. Mariam Barghouti has also been tweeting about attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank by Palestinian Authority forces. This week, reporter Shatha al-Sabbagh was shot dead by a Palestinian Authority sniper. The PA has been in a battle with Palestinian Popular Forces for weeks in Jenin. Residents say Sabbagh was with her mother and carrying young children when she was shot. They said she was in a well-lit neighborhood with no ongoing clashes or security threats in the area. Saturday, January 18th, the Day of the Forest Defender. A forum, a webinar to talk about the Stop Cop City efforts and the police killing of Tortuguita in Atlanta. The webinar will be up on Zoom at 4 p.m. on that day. See pepeace.org for details. Now, speakers at the recent Hartford conference, sponsored by the Connecticut Palestine Solidarity Coalition.
I'd like to start first by just offering my solidarity to anybody in this room who is from Gaza or has family living in Gaza, and to those who are from Lebanon or have family living in Lebanon. There are no words to describe the impact of the last year, but I know that for myself, I've been very shut down seeing the impact of the genocide on my friends in Gaza and Lebanon. And this is the most people I've been around in literally months. So it feels very good to be in a room with people that understand what's happening, that are actively trying to resist it. And I hope all of us can take away just some of that community and strengthen our resolve to ensure that none of this ever happens again and that the genocide ends right now. So my name is Christian. I am the Programming and Operations Manager at Eyewitness Palestine. And for those who don't know, Eyewitness Palestine, our main work is organizing delegations to visit and engage with Palestinians on the ground. And we also, in absence of that, do regular programming each month online, which includes virtual webinars with different organizations that we partner with for mutual aid campaigns, as well as a monthly virtual delegation to a different city, village, or even camp across historic Palestine. So you can get tapped into our upcoming events by visiting eyewitnesspalestine.org. And just to say a little bit more about these delegations, the organization has been taking delegations for over 20 years. It started under the Fellowship of Reconciliation, then had its own organization called Interfaith Peace Builders, and about 6 years ago the organization renamed itself as Eyewitness Palestine to more intentionally and directly focus on the need to center Palestinians in the fight for justice and liberation. And so we've taken over 74 delegations over the past 20-something years. These include open delegations or more targeted and thematically specific groups like an olive harvest and environmental justice delegation. We're actually leading a Black and Indigenous delegation to engage with Afro-Palestinians and other Black and African populations on the ground, in addition to Palestinian society more broadly next month. We've had artist delegations, we've had legal delegations, we had a medical delegation to Gaza earlier this year, and at sometimes over the summer, delegations geared towards students and college professors. So if you're interested in joining these, again, please visit our website, eyewitnesspalestine.org. Our next delegation will be in February, mid to late February of 2025. And these delegations include people of all backgrounds, so people who are Palestinian that have been there, Palestinians that are going for the first time, people that are already active in movements, people that are just learning but want to know more, folks of all faiths, queer folks, students. So we really try to engage the broadest population possible to ensure that everyone's coming home and working in their communities to be lifelong advocates for Palestine and for social justice in their communities. And I'll just share a little bit about my own background and how visiting Palestine influenced the organizing that I've been a part of over the last decade. And that's to say, as a college student, I knew nothing about Palestine until I came home one day and saw my roommates watching a video of an alum of our university being arrested protesting the closure of Shatha Street in Hebron to Palestinians. And he was brutally arrested. It was a very clear kind of injustice. And so as a student reporter for a campus paper, I just started covering the issue. And through that, learned about the occupation, learned about the way that the US military and government are supporting the occupation. And it pushed me to be an advocate, but I immediately faced the kind of backlash of, oh, you've never been to Palestine, so you can't possibly say what's going on or know what's going on. And so I said, okay, sure, I'm gonna go to Palestine. And was able to go on a delegation with Eyewitness Palestine in 2013. And it completely changed my life. So this happened in the aftermath of the murder of Trayvon Martin. And when I got to Palestine, I started seeing lots of connections and parallels between the narratives used to justify the oppression of Palestinians or demonize their resistance, and similar narratives used to justify the oppression of black folks on this land or demonize our communities. Whether that is seeing the apartheid wall and hearing that it's for security, and wondering, okay, well, what does it mean if the people that you're secure from are us and our communities? Or visiting the Tamimi family in Nabi Saleh and hearing how the occupation routinely throws tear gas into houses providing refuge for women and children, again, under the guise of them being security threats. Or the justification for the murder of Palestinians going about their lives was very resonant to me with the stand your ground rationale of, oh, I feared for my life, so I can kill a 17-year-old black child or a black person. And it's this work that kind of led me to come back and co-found Black for Palestine, which emerged the summer of the 2014 uprising in Ferguson after Mike Brown's murder, as well as the 2014 war in Gaza, when more and more people started to see the connections between our oppression. So I think what's kind of come from being able to engage directly on the ground with folks is developing relationships that then allow people to build networks across the United States. So for example, in my delegation, we met with the Right to Education campaign at Birzeit University, and they knew I was part of National Students for Justice in Palestine, so they said, oh, we want to arrange a speaking tour, can you help us with that? And then we were able to arrange 2 different tours of students visiting campuses all across the country to talk about the impact of the occupation on the right to education. Similarly, and I think one point I want to stress is that we should be working to engage with Palestinians wherever they are. So yes, it's important to visit Palestine and stand in solidarity. It's also important to engage with Palestinian refugees that are in exile out of Palestine, whether in Lebanon or Jordan. And Syria is hard to get to, but we can't leave behind the parts of the diaspora that have been impacted since 1948 and living in exile. So with Black for Palestine, we were able to visit our comrades and our family in the refugee camps in Lebanon, and we're honestly some of the first visitors from outside that they had received in a very, very long time, if ever. And so these moments of being able to build bridges and connections are really important to trying to strengthen the fabric, the social fabric across the Palestinian diaspora and movement. And the flip side of that is that as we fight for Palestinian liberation, we also must be fighting for liberation on this land, which itself is a settler colony. So supporting our Black and Indigenous comrades in their own struggles for liberation. And so if folks are unable to travel all the way across an ocean and 2 continents to visit Palestine, what does it look like to organize or arrange delegations to support Black and Indigenous organizing projects here in the so-called states, whether that's Detroit or Jackson, Mississippi, or comrades in reservations in Pine Ridge, or Puerto Rico, which is occupied by the US, or Hawaii, which is occupied and colonized by the US. There's work to do, or even in our own communities. I know all of you are already actively part of that bridge building in your communities, but we also have to extend that solidarity and work to the oppressed nations in this land as well. So I'll wrap up here just by going over some of the upcoming events that we have if folks are interested. Over the next month, we have a number of events. Next week, we have an event with the Right to Education campaign in Birzeit, along with students at City College in New York that are part of their encampment, to have a dialogue or back and forth conversation about students resisting occupation and apartheid. At the end of this month, we'll have a virtual delegation to visit al-Amari camp in Ramallah to hear about the conditions of Palestinians living as refugees inside the West Bank. Next month, we'll have an event with the first Palestinian pastor from Jerusalem, Sally Azar, and we'll also be having a virtual delegation to visit Nazareth and learn about the conditions facing Palestinians and Palestinian Christians living in 48. Yeah, just again, I really appreciate just the deep commitment across background, across age that I've seen in this space. It's been really exciting to engage with. I encourage everyone to continue doing the work that you're doing, deepen it however you can, build new bridges, make new relationships, and just for lack of a shameless plug, for folks who are like, oh, really like this shirt, or saw it earlier, you can hit my brother and comrade and coworker Larry in the back downstairs. We also have ideas. But this work supports scholarships for our delegations and also our mutual aid contributions to our partners on the ground in Palestine. Yeah, so thank you again to the organizers, and I thank you for your time.
Keep it going for Christians. We have Sultana Hussein. Sultana Hussein is a labor organizer and member of NYC Labor for Palestine. She's a rank-and-file warehouse worker at Amazon's JFK 8 facility in Staten Island, the only unionized Amazon warehouse in the country, and the recording secretary from Amazon Labor Union. As a worker and movement leader, Sultana has been key in building trade union contingents, organizing meetings, and mobilizations in solidarity with Palestine all over New York City. Please give it up for Sultana.
So my name is Sultana. I am an officer of the Amazon Labor Union, IBT Local 1 in Staten Island, New York, and a member of New York City Labor for Palestine and the Labor for Palestine National Network. So I have a question for you all. So is anyone here a member of a union? Oh yeah. Has anyone here been involved with organizing their coworkers and forming a union in your workplace? Okay, that's awesome, amazing. Okay. So, yeah, so I'm here to basically talk about a critical aspect of this fight, our collective responsibility as members of the international working class, as organized workers in the labor movement, to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people. The labor movement has always been a cornerstone of resistance to oppression, and in the fight for Palestinian liberation, our role is as essential as ever. So Labor for Palestine was founded in 2004 by union activists and members of the Palestinian community, and it was established to reclaim the legacy of working class solidarity with Palestine in the US. This legacy is rooted in historic actions like the groundbreaking statements of the League of Revolutionary Black Workers in 1969 and the bold wildcat strikes against the UAW leadership's support for Israel in 1973. So history shows us that labor has always played a pivotal role in liberation struggles, and it's a force for justice and change. From the fight against apartheid in South Africa to the global anti-colonial movements of the 20th century, workers have used their collective power to disrupt oppressive systems, refusing to allow our labor to fund injustice. So these historic actions, they remind us of the tremendous power of organizing. And history is only as meaningful if we act on it. And today we face a new set of challenges that demand the same kind of courage and clarity. The principle of unity that grounds our organizing work in Labor for Palestine is solidarity with the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions and embracing their call to end all complicity, to stop arming Israel, and to stand resolutely with the struggle for Palestinian liberation and return. Our strategy in Labor for Palestine is rooted in the idea that solidarity is not a verbal position, it's not just a belief or a feeling, and it can't be limited to like resolutions or conference declarations or statements, although that's an incredibly important starting point. Solidarity is an action word. And solidarity is an action word, and as rank and file trade unionists, we're uniquely positioned to act. Our power lies in our ability to disrupt systems of exploitation at their core, to shut down production, to interrupt supply chains, and to withhold our labor when it is being used to perpetuate injustice. So this means taking concrete steps, including demanding an immediate end to the siege in Gaza and halting all US military aid to Israel, following the example of Block the Boat, ILWU, West Coast dockers, and workers worldwide who refuse to build, transport, and support weapons for Israel. This also means respecting the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, BDS, severing ties with Israel's labor federation, the Histadrut, and its US mouthpiece, the Jewish Labor Committee. This includes divesting from Israel bonds and industries profiting from Zionist settler colonialism and occupation. And across the world, unions and organized workers have already taken meaningful steps. Just to name a few examples, in New York, education and city workers have called for divestment of their retirement savings and pensions from contributing to Israeli occupation and genocide. SCIU 1021 passed a divestment resolution and won. CIR, which is a residents' physicians union, passed a resolution to refuse to endorse genocidal candidates at their national convention. And Google tech workers organized occupations of offices across the country in New York and California in an escalation of the No Tech for Apartheid campaign, and over 50 workers were fired in retaliation, and I think they knew the risks involved, but they were ready to put it all on the line, and that's what we need to do. And these actions really demonstrate the immense power we have when we align our labor with principles of justice and liberation. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own union. So we've taken stands to hold Amazon accountable as a war profiteer. In December 2023, my caucus, the ALU Democratic Reform Caucus, passed our Palestine resolution, which was later adopted by my union. And later in the same month, my caucus organized a work stoppage, and several dozen warehouse workers at JFK 8 in Staten Island walked out in solidarity with the Palestinian liberation movement. So our specific demand, so we condemned Amazon for its complicity through the $1.2 billion contract signed in 2021 known as Project Nimbus. It's a cloud technology contract where Amazon Web Services provides this technology to the IOF. It enables the occupation, apartheid, and systemic violence against Palestinians. So it's not just a technology contract, it's an active partnership in oppression. And as Amazon warehouse workers, we refuse to remain silent in the face of such blatant complicity of the company that is profiting billions of dollars off of our own labor. We said, hell no, we're not doing that. So So, like, imagine what we can achieve with the full strength of the labor movement, standing united with Palestinian resistance. If we collectively refuse to allow our labor to fund, fuel, or arm the Zionist war machine, and it is within our power to disrupt this flow of capital. It is. That's where our power is rooted as workers. So our task demands that we as a labor movement deepen our alliances and build revolutionary unity across borders in our shared identity as part of the international working class. If solidarity is an action word, our power comes from the strikes we organize, the contracts we refuse, the boycotts we honor, and the justice we demand. So I think now it's the time to build a labor movement that can live up to its highest ideals. And that means doing the hard work of organizing within our own unions, organizing a union if you don't have one, organize with your coworkers, educate your coworkers, and build the kind of democratic class struggle unionism that can really challenge capitalism and capitalist systems of oppression and transform society. So that's my call to action here, is like, go back to your unions and your workplaces, and let's hold ourselves accountable to build a labor movement that can really challenge these things and create a future where, like, all people are liberated. All right, free Palestine. Thank you.
One more time. Thank you so much, Sultana. That was amazing. All right, before we move into our next speaker, I want to quickly give another announcement because we just announced our...
Syria. The influencers who supported Assad haven't changed their tune. The worst is Scott Ritter. He has actually written that Syrian Muslims who supported the fall of Assad should be killed. Here's the tweet and a close-up where he writes, "Those so-called Muslims who cheer what is happening in Syria today are, in fact, anything but Muslim. They are unbelievers, kafir, and should be treated by the Islamic world as such. Apostates who should be eradicated with extreme prejudice. And the non-Muslim world should line up to help in this extermination." Needless to say, Ritter himself is not a Muslim. Keep all this in mind when you see certain activists collaborate with Scott Ritter. A completely different tweet and video from journalist Shane Bauer, who is in Syria. He writes, "Today I visited Yarmouk Camp, which was once the largest Palestinian community outside of Palestine. I once lived here, and these streets were full of people. The Assad regime did this. Remember this the next time you hear that the fall of the Assad regime was bad for Palestinians." And to leave you in a good mood, people returning to the Syrian town of Masyaf after 13 years. That's our program for today. See us next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for the Struggle Video News.